Hello, my name is Hunter Aaron, and I'm doing the Cultural Connections portion of the project for TJ, Carlos, Kenny, Thomas, and I. Our novel is World of Worlds by H.G. Wells, and the main conflict of this book is these Martians, these aliens from Mars, have invaded England. And when this book was written by H.G. Wells, it was pre World War II, and he was using the Martians as a metaphor for Hitler's forces and how they had just kind of risen up in Europe and then began taking over Europe. And for a while, Hitler was ignored. Well, not ignored, but he wasn't taken as a serious threat by the world powers. They just kind of gave him what he wanted. And during during the book, the Martians originally they're not exactly taken seriously. The first couple days, people went to the pit, the landing site, and the Martian heat ray actually just killed a lot of them. But even outside of that, people didn't acknowledge it. People just kind of let it be. And when the main character, whose name's not given, who's just known as the narrator, he he went and talked to some people in the town, and he asked them, "Have you heard anything about the Martians? Have you heard anything?" And they thought he was drunk and crazy, and just let it be. And that was bad. And in today's world, you could say that this book kind of alludes to the Syrian conflict in its own way. And I would say that the Martians are President Assad's forces, and their heat ray would be his sarin gas, which he used against the opposition force, which would be the English military in this case. And at one point in the book, the Martians are crossing this river trying to get to London, and the narrator is like swimming through, and he's just trying to get to the other side, get to safety, and the English artillery just blasts the crap out of this or this Martian tripod, and they took it down. The Martian tripod goes down, and the Martians retreat. And this could be seen as the opposition force in the Syrian war striking back against Assad for using the sarin gas. Unfortunately, they had used their own chemical weapons to do so, but that's just sort of how the fight progressed. And one of the biggest things is the narrator is running for his life for the majority of this book. He is just trying to get to safety, trying to stay alive. And it was very, very traumatic, very, very difficult to keep pushing on, to keep going. And the narrator and a lot of the English people who are just civilians kind of represent the Syrian people who aren't on the opposition force and aren't on Assad's forces. They're just in the country trying to live their normal lives, and there's this big conflict going on around them where people are getting killed, people are getting shot and suffocating to death from chemical weapons, and they're trying to stay safe. And a lot of them left Syria. Like there's millions of refugees outside of Syria right now who are just they're trying to figure out what are they doing? Where can they go that they're not going to be opposed in this big conflict that's threatening them. And that's just it's not good. And in today's world, if we were to put our own culture onto this book, I think one of the biggest things is the lack of communication in this book is extraordinary. The people don't take it seriously, and those who read the stories, the newspapers weren't making it a big problem. They were joking about it, saying, "Oh boy, aliens." And in today's world, it's easy to say because of our 24-hour news cycle and the mass media around us, the internet. I mean, it's insane. I can access anything I want just from my phone. And back then, that wasn't possible. If you wanted information, you had to go and get it from your own means. You couldn't just pull it up on a computer. They didn't exist back then, obviously. And putting our culture on it, it's easy to say that what they did was ridiculous because Their military acted extremely slowly. People never took it seriously. But in today's world, if aliens landed on Earth, the press would have a field day. Internet would be all over it. Cable news, all the news stations would just be aliens, aliens, aliens. And even if like you go on History Channel or anything, there's already shows about aliens all the time. Whereas back then, aliens were a joke. Like, oh, they didn't even believe that life occurred on other planets. And in today's society, we can say that. I mean, the universe is pretty big. There's probably life out there, and we have so much more information at our fingertips. Like, we can get whatever we want just in a matter of seconds. And it, if we put our culture on it, the communication would have been different, and the military action would have been significantly greater. If aliens seemed to be at all threatening to our survival, they would take care of that fairly quickly. There would be a lot of protective measures taken. I mean, obviously there would be a lot of chaos, but our military would definitely be actively like trying to get this under control and trying to deal with it. And in the book, the English military, the English military tried to do their best to deal with the situation, but they really had no way of understanding the situation. The artillerymen didn't know what was coming at them till they finally actually saw it. Now, a lot of them, they just kept shipping in more and more, and in the end, it wasn't even the English military that defeated the aliens. It was our disease, these earthly diseases that these aliens had never encountered before, and it killed them. And a good example of this would be during the colonial days, back 1600s, 1700s, when the Europeans, when they came over to North and South America, a lot of the native people, the Native Americans, were were killed by disease because their bodies were not adapted to it. Now, today's world, a lot of Native Americans will not die from coming in contact with someone from Europe, but it the diseases were just not they were not prepared for them. And in the book, this earthly disease, you could say that represents, I guess, the UN in today's world, in that the UN, while it does not necessarily kill the situation, it does do its best to diplomatically reason out the situation. We've seen a lot of action, especially because of Vladimir Putin, the president from Russia. We've seen a lot more action to take care of the situation diplomatically as opposed to military wise. And now we're trying to get these chemical weapons out of Syria, and we're trying to destroy them, and that's winding down the conflict significantly. It's trying to create peace in that region, which is extremely difficult. Civil wars are bad, and that's how I'm gonna end this. Civil wars are bad, so don't go to civil war.